Wilmington, North Carolina, November 13, 1898. William McKinley, President of the United States of America. Honorable Sir, I, a Negro woman of this city, appeal to you from the depths of my heart to do something in the Negro's behalf. The outside world only knows one side of the trouble here.
For the first time in my life, I've been ashamed of my state and of the Democratic Party of North Carolina, and I hope I utter the sentiment of many other women when I lift my voice in solemn protest against the proceedings in Wilmington, North Carolina on last Thursday, November 10th. It will ever be a day to be remembered in my heart with indignation and sorrow. I awoke that morning with a thankful heart that the election had passed without the shedding of blood of either the innocent or the guilty. I heard the colored people going about their work, talking cheerfully together, as had not been the case for many days. 3 hours later, how changed was all this. Men with guns were standing on our sidewalk. Yells and cheers were heard in the distance. And a little later, the fire bell began to ring.
On the 10th Thursday morning, between 8 and 9 o'clock, when all Negro men had gone to their places of work, the white men, led by Colonel A.M. Waddell, John D. Bellamy, and S.H. Fishblate, marched from the Light Infantry Armory on Market Street to 7th, down 7th to Love and Charity Hall, which was owned by a society of Negroes, and where the Negro Daily Press was, and set it afire. After destroying the building, they went over in Brooklyn, another mostly Negro settlement, and began searching everyone. And if you did not submit, you would be shot down on the spot.
The whole thing was done with the object of striking terror in these men's hearts so that they would never vote again. For this was the object of the whole persecution, to make November 10th a day to be remembered by the whole Negro race for all time.
Wilmington was a changed city after the Civil War. By the time Reconstruction ended in 1877, prosperity had begun to return, but equal opportunities were not available to everyone.
As in many southern cities, Wilmington's power elite had owned a very large number of slaves. Now set free and beginning to find paid work to support their families, these former slaves comprised 2/3 of the city's residents.
In the 33 years after the Civil War, enterprising men and women of color had begun to establish a strong working class and realize economic gains. They worked as laborers, craftsmen, and professionals, and owned 90% of Wilmington's restaurants and barbershops. Many were promoted to better-paying jobs in the city, as the collector of customs, justice of the peace, policemen, firemen, deputy clerks, postmasters, doctors, teachers, and politicians. Wilmington had begun to emerge as a mecca for African Americans.
In the 1880s and 90s, the black middle class was expanding. This created economic tension for the white community because they perceived the Negroes as advancing more rapidly and at the expense of white wage earners. So when the United States went into an economic depression in 1893, White resentment turned to outright hostility.
Now, these economic problems were exacerbated by increasing black political participation. African Americans comprised a majority of the population in both Wilmington and New Hanover County. They tended to vote Republican, whereas most ordinary whites voted Democratic. And because of their large numbers, blacks contributed to the victories of the Republican populist coalition in the 1890s. Now, as a reward for their party loyalty, certain prominent black Republicans were appointed to political office and to municipal jobs in the city of Wilmington. Now, the power that these individuals held was really negligible, particularly when you compared it to white office holding. But the problem for whites in Wilmington and New Hanover County is that black political influence had increased dramatically, and they feared that blacks would use this political power to force racial equality on Southern society. So by the time you get to 1897, black office holding was commonplace in this region, and by 1898, redeeming the city of Wilmington from what they called Negro domination had become the goal of the white supremacy campaign.
In 3 days of civil disorder, the power elite of Wilmington signed and adopted the white man's Declaration of Independence, declaring blacks unsuitable for well-paying jobs or holding public office. The Daily Record was destroyed, its editor Alex Manley exiled, silencing the public voice of the black community.
As we look at what happened in 1898, 1898 is part of an evolutionary process on the part of conservative Southern whites, or better still, the white supremacists, to eliminate blacks from politics, and certainly to eliminate the possibility that blacks would seek social equality. One of the most important underpinnings of white supremacy was a resort to violence. And no one should have been overly surprised that the campaign here in North Carolina, and especially in Wilmington, would not have terminated in violence.
Since early this morning, nearly 1,000 armed white men and boys have carried on a campaign of intimidation and terror on the streets of this seaport city. Led by Colonel Waddell and backed by the white supremacist Democratic Party and an organization of prominent white businessmen, a mob of red shirts and other vigilantes has taken over the city government, ousting the legally elected Republican mayor and board of aldermen by force of arms, in what is widely believed to be the only coup d'etat of an American government in history. The white supremacists claim black domination of the local political and economic scene. Their answer? Mobs wielding brickbats, Winchester rifles, and at least one machine gun. As night falls, and with it a cold rain, the city is in chaos. It is unclear who or what will rescue the citizens of Black Wilmington.
"100 years later, Wilmington, North Carolina, continues to celebrate the Old South with its antebellum plantations, historic attractions, and annual festivals.
But a conspiracy of silence existed concerning a significant chapter in the city's history, the true events of the 1898 violence and coup, a secret that has divided the city along racial lines for over a century, until a group of Wilmington citizens decided to tell the truth.
New Hanover County citizens are approaching a 100-year observance, an observance that will cause us to reflect, to focus, as well as examine events that occurred a century ago. Reflection and examination are healthy practices, for they will cause us or enable us to develop a balanced perspective.
This community effort at remembrance and reconciliation grew out of a series of community conversations held in June of 1996. What emerged from those meetings and subsequent meetings was an independent citizens organization, the 1898 Centennial Foundation, which saw the challenge as twofold. The need to look to the past by remembering the event and understanding its causes, the broader historical context, and its consequences, and by commemorating the tragedy with an appropriate monument. And the need to look to the future through efforts that foster racial reconciliation and a new spirit of justice and tolerance in Wilmington, and through initiatives that restore the full measure of economic opportunity to those who have suffered its abridgment. In short, we seek to tell the story, to honor the memory, to heal the wound, and to restore the hope.
Carter G. Woodson, the father of black history, stated, "If a race has no history, if it has no worthwhile tradition, it becomes a negligible factor in the thoughts of the world, and it stands in danger of being exterminated. Our past is replete with injustice, but we cannot allow our anger to prevent us from using the past as a foundation to inform, expand, and enrich our present and future. We begin by telling the story, honoring the memory, healing the wound, and restoring the hope as we focus on the events of 1898 in Wilmington, North Carolina."
It's true. People said in the beginning, let sleeping dogs lie, or don't go stirring up that can of worms. I mean, don't look there. Don't peek in that door. And there were some brave souls that were standing out there alone, peeking in that door. And they had the courage not only peek in that door, but to open it wide.
In January of 1998, they launched a year-long commemoration of the 100th anniversary of the racial violence and coup d'etat of November 1898. Over 800 attended the opening ceremonies, moving forward together. Local, regional, and national political leaders offered their support, including messages from the governor and the President of the United States.
You shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. That's what this Centennial commemoration is about.
And we keep alive the sense of community.
There was an impressive program, but what was impressive to me is when I looked around in the balconies and that kind of thing, I saw faces there of people. And I gotta say it like it is, I saw faces of white people there that I thought would never attend a program like that.
The Education Committee produced an informational video outlining a brief history of the events of 1898 and the impact on the community.
The violence in 1898 in Wilmington would have enormous consequences at the local, state, and national level. First of all, it returned to power a commercial elite, a white conservative commercial elite, whose power had been successfully challenged by a black-white coalition of voters earlier.
1898 has impacted our community negatively for almost a century. It's given us what is known as race fatigue, a weakening of the mental faculties under stress, trying to work and cooperate together. The economic dream that was promised us through the Bill of Rights. There are others who feel that equality has been denied none of us. We have not had a meeting of the minds. It is necessary for us to admit we have a problem, submit our will to straightening it out, bring about restitution, reconciliation, and conviction. In order to do this, we have to have normal dialogue. When we've done this, it means that we can work things out and come together and be effective in bringing equality to all.
The most profound reason for observing past history in any context is for the recovery of truth. And in this case, for Wilmington of 1898, the real reason ought to be to try not only to discover what happened, but to replace the lie with the truth. We know that the lie is at the basis of all of the problems of blacks and whites in this country. Slavery, segregation, Jim Crow laws, discrimination of all kinds, based on the lie of white superiority and black inferiority.
Participating organizations added to the diversity of the audiences reached during the commemorative year. The Cape Fear Museum mounted a continuing display depicting the events of 1898 during the museum's 100th anniversary celebration. The New Hanover County Library organized special educational programs, and actors from local theater groups performed as living history characters in county schools and community events.
Lecture series including Wilmington in Black and White and Wilmington's African American Heritage were offered throughout the year. The 1898 Centennial Foundation sponsored a poetry and essay contest in the public schools as a beginning step in teaching a more complete and accurate local history.
The University of North Carolina at Wilmington hosted a two-day symposium with international scholars presenting papers on the events of 1898 and its legacy, including Dr. Leon Prather, who wrote We Have Taken a City, a comprehensive historical account of 1898. Published in 1984, it had been out of print for a decade. With the help of the 1898 Foundation, We Have Taken a City was recently reprinted by New World Enterprises.
David Soselsky's Democracy Betrayed and Wilmington native William Reeves' publication of Strength Through Struggle shed new light on 1898 and on the history of African Americans. Presidential Medal of Honor recipient Dr. John Hope Franklin was keynote speaker, representing President Clinton's initiative on race relations. He riveted the audience with his painful memories of racism.
Perhaps someday in the near or distant future, place will have for African Americans the same meaning it has for other Americans. It is not too much to hope that when that day arrives, civility will take on a new meaning. Perhaps someday it will not mean clashes, rioting, and noncompliance on the part of some. Perhaps it will be used in its original sense, civility, a polite act or expression, courtesy, politeness. May that day come soon. Thank you.
The 1898 Foundation website offers a comprehensive history of 1898 and provides information on the Foundation's continuing work toward a model city of diversity and inclusion. Regular newsletters detail the Foundation's activities, and in January,
implement Black history studies, whether those Black parents are present at that board meeting or not. It is their obligation and duty to all boys and girls that they inculcate African American history so that those students can learn that as well as European history.
In each group, personal and professional friendships were formed between blacks and whites. Many didn't want the meetings to end, so they decided on community projects to continue building relationships.
Yeah, I guess you could say that. It was an interesting project. You know, we got through it, the dialogue, and everybody wanted to do something else, and this is what spawned out of that. Well, you see it.
It's good. We decided to have the gardens, and we decided to have sort of a bridge between the two communities and students.
I think we've bonded and we formed lasting friendships.
I think that's, if nothing else has come out of it, that has.
The dialogue group was really a very eye-opening experience for me. That it made me blatantly aware of some things that I just was very naive about, I guess.
And we're able to talk with each other about how we feel about different things. And as I said, this is the group that will not die, so we're now moving into what's the Saturday morning?
Saturday brunch.
Saturday brunch club. We're just going to keep going on and on.
I'm 83 years old, and to me, I've seen many, many changes, and this is one of the changes that I really appreciate.
The YWCA has now taken the study circle dialogues to a new level, with hundreds more participating every year. Several corporations and organizations have enrolled their employees and members.
We accept people by the values that we may hold, and sometimes those biases and judgments get in the way.
Wilmington City Council has recommended that all its officials, law enforcement agents, and elected leaders take part in the interracial dialogue sessions.
One thing I've always lived by this premise is I've been at the sheriff's department for 19 years, and I've lived and I've learned and I've got along with people simply because of the fact that I treat people the way I'd like to be treated.
What do you think?
I think you would see a big change. It wouldn't be this black against white or white against black. It's people against people.
To restore the hope is a primary goal of this community effort. The Partners for Economic Inclusion was formed with a focus on empowerment, economic development, and real inclusion for the African American community.
In association with the Greater Wilmington Chamber of Commerce and the Southeastern North Carolina Black Chamber of Commerce, over $2 million in minority business loans have been facilitated by the Partners for Economic Inclusion and area banks.
The purpose of the Partners for Economic Inclusion is to redress the divisions in the economic environment that resulted from the historical exclusion of black people from participating in business opportunities.
We've really identified some of the critical issues that are out there and bringing the black and white business communities together, as evidenced by the conference today.
I think the end goal is what you see today, empowerment. Empowering people to run their businesses, giving them a chance to build relationships with companies and people that they haven't done in the past. And certainly in the future, you'll see a very diverse, economically inclusive community here in this region.
Learning that before any business success or exchange can occur, personal relationships have to be built. And one of the things that's happened is a lot of true and deep friendships have been built as a result of this effort. And now the business exchanges are starting to occur.
I hear too much, I think, about a black community and a white community, and it's time we got to be more of one community, and we're all headed that way, I certainly do think. As far as inclusion in the business community, as we go along with Bob Gerlach's program, maybe we could set up workshops that would tell young people or new people how to get included in the business community.
I think this conference today is a pragmatic result which comes out of 1898. There were people who were skeptics, who thought that perhaps everything we would meet and have a good time and talk about the past and go home. But this shows that there is a group of people who are working, keeping this going, and there are hundreds of people who are now involved in this process.
So I think we just need to keep building relationships, keep meeting like this, and keep opening ourselves to a new adventure.
I expect the responsible members of the white community to be doers in the process of reconciliation, and I hope responsible blacks accept the reconciliation efforts in the spirit of developing a feeling of togetherness that will advance the city of Wilmington and southeastern North Carolina.
The Carolina Heritage Tourism Network was created to promote African American history and culture and generate income opportunities for the black community.
The 1898 Foundation invited National Heritage Tourism consultant Khalifa Powell to help develop a strategy to promote African American tourism along the Cape Fear coast.
And what we were doing over the last few days, we're touring the area, looking at the assets and seeing how we can uncover those that have been lying dormant and incorporate those into a serious economic development initiative that will impact and support African American business ownership, increase job opportunity, and the overall economy of the Wilmington area.
The first step was to establish an African American Heritage Trail, highlighting individuals and locations of black achievement.
A promotional brochure was produced and distributed throughout the Southeast as a guide map to 16 sites in historic downtown Wilmington.
The impressive talents of the Black Arts Alliance, the Willis Richardson Players, and the David Walker Festival add excitement to cultural heritage celebrations with blues, jazz, African art, crafts, and native cuisine. On November 10, 1998, the 100th anniversary of the racial violence and coup d'etat of Wilmington, North Carolina, a powerful symbolic healing occurred. At Thalian Hall, where the infamous white man's Declaration of Independence had been signed by over 400 white men in 1898, the citizens of Wilmington gathered for the closing ceremony of the 1898 Centennial Foundation.
Every man, woman, and child present signed this People's Declaration of Racial Interdependence and pledged their commitment to social, economic, and political inclusion. We all know that the injustice that was inflicted was wrong, and we pledge ourselves to remove the vestiges of exclusion. Let this entire community become a shining beacon of racial equality and harmony, integrating all its social institutions and organizations, and positively fostering inclusion where exclusion has previously reigned. We are all well aware that this is the right thing to do, and this is the right time to do it. So help us God.
It has been an emotional experience for me. I appreciate it. And I think I'm just praising the whole committee, all of the committees.
Events like this may happen around the country, but I've never heard of a situation where a community recognized probably the most painful and traumatic experience in the history of the city. And then people in the city went out of their way to organize and raise funds from the state and get the university involved and create an event of this type.
When I went to an interracial dinner at the Y in March, early March I believe it was, I counted in that audience 26 young black men. And it made my heart just shout for joy that I could see that we were reaching the person that we need to reach. They were there, they had taken the circles, They were mingling, they were at ease, and it was just like a good old family dinner when your people have been away a long time and everybody came home.
The first time that I came here a year and a half ago to do research, I felt a great darkness and weight being here the way one does in a place where something terrible has happened. Wounded Knee, Gettysburg, you go to places like that and you really can feel the weight of a crushing event that happened there. And I suppose a year and a half later, at the conclusion of this weekend, I do have to say that I think there's an enormous body of light around Wilmington as well, because if its people have seen fit to try to address this past, that is, as we've all agreed, remarkable in the annals of American cities.
I believe that there must be a commitment from the community to overcome the economic and the social and the political disenfranchisement that has occurred. The anger about the incident has passed with me. My great-grandmother wanted me to know for a reason. The reason was not to be angry for all of my life. The reason was to be smart about it. And that is what I pass on to my children. That is what I suggest that those of you who are here today go forth and do and pass on to your children as well.
Yesterday, no peace of mind will ever come for those who fill their minds with hate. From every corner of the whole world, people now can understand. Together all of us can live and learn. The promised land. Give with unselfish love is what he would say if we were here today. One love, one life, one dream. One world is all we have. One love, one life, one dream. One world is all we have. Take a good look in the mirror. Ask yourself what all this world to change. Well, that change must come from you. Give with unselfish love is what he would say.